Now, Rodney, it looks like we're going to have the pleasure of tasting a couple of Lakes Folly wines here. Just the Chardonnay, firstly.
Yep.
2007 vintage. Now, Chardonnay is quite a remarkable variety, isn't it, on the world stage? I don't think many people realise it's the base of Champagne, and it is white and Burgundy, both in France, which make it quite an extraordinary variety.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's really funny. People go through phases of, there was supposedly this ABC club, anything but Chardonnay. And I still maintain, and it's got nothing to do with flying the Lakes Folly flag, but I still think that good Chardonnay is the best white wine you can get. I mean, it's the most interesting, it's the most complex, the most layered. Other things will come in and out of fashion. I mean, at the moment, Sauvignon Blanc gets a big rap, but honestly, I think it's hard to go past really good Chardonnay. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. It's often referred to, and we understand this, as a real winemaker's variety. So, and for you, what is it about Chardonnay and the production of Chardonnay that makes it so special?
I guess it's the fact that you, as a winemaker, you can actually feel that you're making a positive contribution to that wine through the various processes that form part of the fermentation and storage of the wine, and I mean there are other varieties like Semillon and Riesling and that are just purely fruit focused wines that really are pretty boring to make from a winemaking perspective, because you're essentially getting the juice fairly well clarified, you're fermenting it in tank at fairly cool temperatures, and you're allowing the wine itself, without any other influence, to speak. And that's great. I mean, they're lovely, pristine, fine wines that have great expression of fruit. But if you're talking about a layered wine that has different levels of flavour and complexity, Chardonnay's fantastic. You can control it by, the temperature of fermentation, how much of the solids, so the stuff that would normally settle out in the settling process of juice,
like the grape pulp, yeah.
Like the grape pulp, yeah. What proportion of that you allow to go through into the ferment,
yeah.
And then how you ferment it, whether you ferment it in tank, whether you ferment it in barrel, whether you partly ferment it in barrel, whether you put it through a process called malolactic fermentation, which is a secondary ferment which gives a diacetyl butterscotchy sort of character, and they're all the fun parts of making Chardonnay.
So when you're talking about the layers of Chardonnay, they're not just all fruit driven. So there's a lot of layered flavours that a winemaker can introduce, and then the two combine to come up with the end product. Yeah, it's a wonderful variety.
And the best wines are those where you can't see the division, so you don't taste, ooh, that's just oak, or ooh, that's fruit, and there at the back there's the acid. It's when you get that meshing, that amalgamation of those flavours in the right ratio, that makes a wine seamless and just flow over the palate and have great length of flavour and good persistence that stays with you.
Yes.
And they're all the things that, are hallmarks to me of a great Chardonnay.
Yeah, sure. So we touched on before the fact that Lakes Folly, to me personally, and a lot of people have said it, has a very European feel about it. And even to go so far as to say the wines also have a very European note to them, or aroma and textural character. And I can see this on this Chardonnay.
Yeah. We often get that comment from fans of ours who will line these wines up with a lot of with other French wines and say, wow, your Chardonnay of all the Australian Chardonnays we put forward, yours is probably the more European amongst them. And I guess I take that as a compliment.
And why? Where's that coming from? I mean, we're in Australia.
I don't know. I think it's partly to do with the region. I think the Hunter is severely underdone when it comes to the perception of what we can do here with Chardonnay. Not all places, but those good vineyard sites can make outstanding Chardonnay. And what's more, Chardonnay that can live for a very long time. I mean, I've had this wine. A few years ago, I opened up the very last bottle of 1974 Chardonnay that we had, and that wine was sensational. Now that's nearly 35 years old.
That's incredible, because they say Chardonnay can't age. And what are the elements of Chardonnay that do allow it to age? I mean, for me, having a good natural acid structure, so any sort of natural acids that have come from the fruit is really key to having that. So that would be a big part of when you pick, I would think.
Yeah. Part of this site, which makes it quite unique, is that we're in a warm climate region, and usually warm, hot climate regions, you lose a lot of natural acidity. That's one of the downsides. You get good flavour ripeness, but it comes at the expense of losing a lot of that natural acidity. For whatever reason, and I still haven't been able to work out exactly why, but it is site specific, we are able to pick with good flavour ripeness and good richness of fruit and still retain good acidity. So we add very little in the way of acid. Oftentimes with our Chardonnay we won't add acid at all.
That's incredible for a warm area.
Yeah.
So in that way, the acid really does link up with the fruit flavours and is harmonious.
But you're spot on. What you said is exactly right, and this is where some people, misinterpret it. People believe that acid is what enables the wine to age. It is, so long as it's naturally occurring. If you add it in the winery as bagged acid, if you just add acid to adjust pH and adjust your total acidity, that will help you out in the immediate, foreseeable period, but it won't give the wine that natural aging potential as if it had it naturally
out of the paddock.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's really along the lines of non-interventionalist winemaking. And some of the best wines in the world are these wines that
make themselves.
That make themselves.
That's it.
Yeah, that's
it.
right.
Yeah.
All right, let's have a little taste, eh?
Yep.
The first thing that occurs to me is just the most beautiful balanced texture and very flinty, almost spicy acid zip to the wine, but with the full richness of Chardonnay.
Yeah. It gets that creamy texture too, and that I think comes from when we ferment it in barrel and we leave it on its yeast lees, and every week we'll go through and pull the bung out and stir it. With a really elaborate lees stirring device, it's just a wooden stick, and that gets that gets the lees mixed up through the wine. It does definitely carry that character that the French called it batonnage. It carries that through on the palate, and that's that really lovely creamy texture, and that creates that bridge between the fruit and the acid finish, and it just gives it that lovely texture.
Now, excuse my ignorance, is it 100% in oak? Fermented in oak?
It's not. It starts life in tank.
In tank.
So we'll ferment it down around about half its life in tank,
right.
and then we shoot it down into.
Then you finish it off.
All French oak. So and we only use the barrels for 3 years. So it goes into a third new wood, 1-year-old and 2-year-old wood.
Right. Yeah. And fermentation's that great marrier of flavour, isn't it? So doing those sort of processes while it's fermenting will really join up oak, fruit flavour, anything else you're doing.
It's the best time of the year for me.
Yeah. It's a terrific
Most stressful, but the most fun.
Yeah. You'd be very proud of this wine. Well done, mate.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.